All right, it is a great day to talk some college football. Welcome in. It's What's the Spread? The boys are here to break down the 10 best non-conference games of the upcoming season. Miles on Sports here, Mr. Brad Thomas. It is crazy to think how close we are to the season. It really snuck up on us this year. How we feeling?
Dude, man, it's wild. Like, it's so wild to think that I think I said this last time. I was thinking about which games I'm going to go to this year, but now I'm like actually planning out my college football attendance schedule. And then we were breaking down these lists. I was like, man, I'm really not going to any of these games. I might be going to one, maybe two. I feel like I'm cheating myself of an awesome experience.
Yeah, I know that you and I will both have this one on our list. The only one I'm going to for sure, I've got my ticket booked for Ohio State Notre Dame. Of course, I wasn't going to
That's
miss that
amazing.
game. Can't wait to talk about it. Disclaimer that I want to put here. First of all, a lot going on with expansion talks. We can kind of talk about that as the episode goes along. I'd like to do maybe a bonus episode with you about that. But really, going into this season, one thing I noticed, and I'm curious to get your thoughts, I think this might be the best and most exciting slate of coaching matchups that we have ever seen in college football. And what I mean by that is we already know that it was the biggest coaching carousel that we've ever seen
Yes.
in college football. Some of the biggest names going from blue blood to blue blood program. And now with this conference realignment, we've got a lot of these matchups that will be Power 5 matchups in the future, but maybe not today. We have classic matchups. We have new coaches. We have first and second year. We have Kyle Whittingham at Utah has been there for 18 years. It is some of the best coaching matchups I have ever seen, and that makes me the most excited for this college football season. Just storylines. What you want in college football and what makes it so great are the stories. Because if we can both agree on this, the NFL is about the stars, man. It's about
Yeah.
fantasy football. It's about the stars. College football is about the stories, and that's why we love it. That's the first thing that I noticed when I put together this list.
No, dude, I totally agree. And you say it's about the stories. When I was telling you, I have 1 or 2 points for some games. Most of those games are the storylines. Let's think about one, like Venables versus Frost. Like that's a storyline. That is something, or a new program, or a new regime against an old battle-tested regime. There's so much of that this season, and it's kind of like we almost missed it. Like it doesn't happen as often as it did this offseason, where we just have new coach, but they're good coaches, quality coaches that either
Right.
grew up in a championship program and then took over a team that, like in Oregon, or took over like a USC, who has championship caliber, championship pedigree, but just kind of needed that new leadership, those new set of eyes, that new whatever you want to call it. It's awesome to see this season. I'm really excited to see what happens with all of these games that I have slated that are in November, because they're on my list as top games, and they could easily be like teams with 3 losses at that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with non-conference, there's a lot of first and second and third week games, but then you got a couple in, October, you got a couple in
Yep.
November that could be exciting, but I guess it really just depends. Let's get into it. Without further ado, I'm going to start with number 10. And I went back and forth on what my number 10 game was going to be. I really had to pick between 3 games at that point. I'm going with the All-State Louisiana kickoff, LSU and Florida State. This one is going to be at the Superdome in New Orleans, so it's pretty much going to be a home game for LSU. And the early line on that is LSU -3 or thereabouts. Here's the thing. We talked about stories. LSU is coming off its first losing season since 1999. Brian Kelly's first game with the program. Florida State, 4 consecutive losing seasons. It's time for Mike Norvell to put up or shut up. These are 2 programs that both might win 5 or 6 games this year. We don't know. But just for me, and not to mention, this is the Sunday night game on Labor Day weekend this year, which is always a good matchup. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff going on here with the coaching.
I had to say that is not on my list. I saw that matchup and I was like, I'm not excited for that. It will be one that we'll watch, but I'll start with my number 10. My number 10, Oklahoma, 5-point favorite against Nebraska. This is a what could be 2 coaches that are out to prove something. And listen, they're out to prove something in different ways. Scott Frost, I don't know if he'll ever get fired from Nebraska, but he really, really, really needs to do something here, because he's had enough time to have his guys that he's recruited in there. Then you have Brent Venables taking over an Oklahoma team who's got absolutely gutted, but no one ever in their right mind counts Oklahoma out. I'm excited for this game because both should still be undefeated to come to this game. And I mean, this could change the trajectory of a Nebraska program. I don't care if Oklahoma finishes the season with 4 losses. I don't care. If you win this game, it's the 3rd week of the season, you're Nebraska and you go undefeated after 3 games. That says a lot about what the possibilities could happen. We could see it could be fool's gold at the end. Let's say Nebraska has an amazing season and then they go to a New Year's Six Bowl and they get absolutely demolished because Oklahoma wasn't that good, even though they won. But there's still so much narrative around it that I like.
This game is very high on my list. I'll just say that to begin with, we got 2 great brands here. As you said, we got Brett Venables really in his first big game early on against Scott Frost too. It's time, but as you said, I don't know if Scott Frost is in any trouble. He showed a lot of improvement last year, but he's got to get to a bowl game this year. He's got to put some big wins under his belt. But for programs like Oklahoma and Nebraska, I just remember, growing up, they were in the Big 12, so they played each other every year, and it was always an exciting game. So I always like seeing those conference rivalries get reignited. It was a great game last year, and I expect much of the same this year. All right, I'll go ahead with my number 9. This is where I have Penn State and Auburn. Auburn 1-point favorites. It's a rematch from the whiteout game a year ago. This is on September 17th, slated for a 3:30 kickoff. It's the only Big Ten SEC regular season matchup, so I had to include it in my top 10. Again, I don't know what the expectations are going to be for Auburn this year. They're definitely down. High expectations for Penn State every year. Auburn should be 2-0 coming into this game. Penn State does have a tough opening game at Purdue.
Man.
So, and they're slight 3-point favorites in that game. So, hoping that they come into this undefeated, but just a good rematch from a great game last year.
Yeah, no, that's my number 9 game as well. And for me, I just remember watching the whiteout game and I was just so absolutely smash drunk. And I was like, this was such a great game. Now they get to do it. Now they get to do it against Auburn, in Auburn. Like, I'm really excited for this game, regardless if Purdue has 1 loss or they're both undefeated, regardless if Harsin doesn't know what he's doing down there. It should be a fun game to watch.
All right. Go ahead and give me your number 8.
Number 8, Notre Dame at USC. This was one of those games that I was talking about. By the way, USC is a 2.5-point favorite. This game is played on my birthday. This is one of the games I was talking about where, man, there's so many what ifs about this game. We could have 2 teams that are just absolutely blazing, or we could have 2 teams that are trying to wait till next season that could both have a couple of losses, but it absolutely does not take away from how amazing this game is going to be. Rivalry Weekend is one of my favorite weekends. It should be a great, fun game for both teams.
This is my number 8 as well, Notre Dame
Nice.
and USC. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to tell you something that you don't already know. Lincoln Riley has reignited college football with this move from Oklahoma to USC. I think that it is the first domino that fell in the expansion. Not to say that that the USC and UCLA to Big Ten wouldn't have happened. I don't think it would have. I think Lincoln Riley brought back the USC brand just by making that move to that school. And I think it reignited the entire sport because we know, you and I both know, college football is better when teams like USC, Texas, Miami, even Michigan, it's a better sport when those brands are better. USC has reignited college football. Now they're moving over to the Big Ten. Notre Dame might be going to the Big Ten. We don't know what's going to happen. But this USC Notre Dame matchup, we grew up with some of the best, Notre Dame USC games that we've ever seen. The Bush push. I mean, it was a big game every year. I think this has the potential to reignite as one of the best rivalries on Rivalry Weekend, as it should.
100%.
Yeah, and as you said, very curious to see where these teams are at. I think both teams will be at 8 wins, possibly. I don't expect big things from either program, but going to be a great game. And it absolutely is going to reignite the rivalry. Think about this. Notre Dame also coming in with new coach, Marcus Freeman. So we got 2 first-year head coaches at 2 very storied programs. It's going to be a very exciting game. All right. Going to number 7, this is where I have the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Oregon and Georgia. Georgia is coming in as, right now, 17-point favorites. This one is in Atlanta. Here's the thing. I've got it number 7 because it loses points for me for being a neutral field matchup. It also loses points for me that Georgia is playing in Atlanta. Boring. Like, you might as well just play the game in Athens at that point. But still, it's a very exciting matchup. I mean, come on. We got Dan Lanning in his first game at Oregon going up against Georgia, who he just coached, one of the best defense we've ever seen in college football, and now he's the head man at Oregon. We got Bo Nix, who should be the starting quarterback at Oregon. Stetson Bennett has a lot to prove as the Georgia QB. There's a lot to unpack in this one.
Dude, no, that I have that game very high on my list. And it's interesting because there's a real possibility that Kirby Smart becomes the next Nick Saban. And what I mean by that is a guy who's consistently recruiting well, consistently having great defenses, and is always in the championship mix. You know what happens? All of the apples that fall from your tree, they get taken away by great programs, and he's just going to have to consistently play against very well-groomed coaches, i.e. Dan Lanning. So I'm very high on this game. I did pull something up about this game because I wanted to see what was the expectation that Georgia would win this game. It's something crazy, like 85% of national champions win their first game. And then 82% of national champions go on to have winning seasons. So I think Oregon's they're in a bit of a bind here because it's a practical home game, but not a home game for Georgia. 17 points tells you enough. I'm excited for this game. It will be one that, we'll watch the start of. And probably by halftime, I think we're going to be like, holy shit, it's like 35-0.
Yeah. We'll see how much work Dan Lanning has been able to do in just 5 or 6 months on that Oregon team. But we've seen crazier things. Oregon went into the shoe last year and beat Ohio State. So You never know. All right, what's next?
My number 7 is Cincinnati at Arkansas. Arkansas 7-point favorite. The reason this is this high on my list is because this is an opportunity for Luke Fickell to say, I don't care who left my team. Cincinnati is a legitimate program. They take on an Arkansas team who won 9 games last year. This could be a statement win for a Cincinnati team who everyone has already written off after they've lost all of that talent, after they lost the playoff game, got absolutely embarrassed. I think this is a huge statement and a huge opportunity. Even if Cincinnati loses this game by 1, people are going to start being like, okay, this Cincinnati program is legit.
Yeah, Arkansas, Cincinnati, I don't have on my list, but I didn't overlook it. It is going to be a great matchup. It kind of gets buried among a very good slate on the opening weekend, but there's a lot of stories there. Cincinnati, where are they at after making the college football playoff last year and losing pretty much their entire roster to the NFL draft or graduation? And where is Arkansas at, man? Because KJ Jefferson is one of my players to look out for. I can't wait to see what he's done this year. Sam Pittman has a lot of hype in that program, but can they repeat the success of last year? We know how difficult that is to do in the SEC. Can't wait to see that. Also, Arkansas's got a game against BYU. So very, very tough slate for them early on. All right, let's go to my number 6. This one stood out to me. We got Miami and Texas A&M.
Same.
Okay, there we go. So let's talk about it. Texas A&M, early 7.5-point favorite. I've got this as a night game, so that's going to be tough for Miami. But again, the coaching matchup. We talked about A&M in our preseason top 25 and all of the story and hype there. How about Mario Cristobal to Miami? What a test for him. Tough road game. Very interesting quarterback dynamic in this game. I believe that Miami has the better quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke, whether A&M starts Haynes King or Max Johnson. So that right there already gives Miami an advantage. If Mario Cristobal is able to go into this game and somehow steal it, I don't think it's going to happen, but you can just think about the ramifications. All the pressure is on A&M here, bro.
Yes.
All of it. So Miami is coming in here with nothing to lose.
For me, I love this game because I wrote the headline as all expectation game. There's so much expectations out of both of these teams, but the real expectation only weighs on the shoulders of like a couple players in Miami. It's on the shoulders of everyone, every single person in Texas A&M. And when we're listening to the headlines, we're reading the newspapers, we're seeing like maybe talk about Miami and what we expect out of them once or twice a month. Texas A&M is literally every day. If Tyler Van Dyke is the real deal, like everyone says, and I think he's the real deal, I think it'll be very interesting to see. Miami has had some games last season that they probably should have won. They probably should have won more games, but Manny Diaz was not a good game management coach. I think Cristobal has the experience and he has the knowledge to, if they're into this in this close game late, don't be surprised if Miami walks away the victor.
All right, let's get into the top 5. Yes. Go ahead and give me your number 5.
Number 5, Utah, 2-point favorite against Florida. Last time they played was 1977. What a game
Yeah.
to set up both teams' seasons. Everyone in the Pac-12 wants a piece of the SEC. And Florida, they desperately need a confidence builder, a holy crap, we can do it game. Why not knock off the defending Pac-12 champions? We have battled the quarterbacks, AR-15 versus Cam Rising. There's just so much good about this game. I can literally, Napier's first game, Whittingham going to a hostile environment. It's going to be loud. I think I'm like drooling. I think there's drool coming out of my mouth when I think about this game.
I am sinking my teeth into this game. This is also my number 5. Utah and Florida doesn't get any better than this. And I love even more that Utah is coming in as a favorite.
Yes. A favorite in the swamp.
Yes. So much hype. It's going to be a night game. It's going to be hot and humid. How does Utah handle the weather? The coaching matchup, Billy Napier's first game. We know how temperamental Florida fans are. And this is just such a big one to open the season. You've got possibly the Pac-12 favorites coming in week 1. And I think we can really start to get a read on where the SEC and where the Pac-12 is at. If Florida blows them out by 21, it's going to tell us a lot. But if Utah goes into the swamp and beats Florida, that's going to say a lot as well. One thing I will say, and I always give my respect to Kyle Whittingham, this man is coming in his 18th season at Utah. Think about this for a second. Kyle Whittingham took over for Urban Meyer in 2004 when Urban Meyer went to Florida. Billy Napier is Florida's, I believe, 5th head coach. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Blow me up on Twitter. I think it's their 5th head coach, and Kyle Whittingham has been holding steady at Utah. Just what a clash. What a matchup. I feel like everything's coming full circle on this one.
You know, when we talk about these games, and that most of them are the first or second week of the season, first or third week of the season, it just makes me even more excited to start college football because, you know, there was a time when we were watching the elite programs knock off cupcakes. We literally have legitimate teams who have legitimate arguments to make it to the playoffs. What's your number 4 game?
All right, number 4. This is where I've got Clemson at Notre Dame.
Same.
You know, okay, I don't know how we keep doing this, man. We did not compare any notes.
That's crazy.
This game. I do not know how we do this. It's why we've been doing it so long. We're so lucky. Okay, number 4, Clemson Notre Dame. Clemson is going to be so far a slight favorite. You know, just great that it's in South Bend. You know, two programs that we talked a lot about in our preseason top 25. I expect big things from Clemson this year. I've got high expectations for them. This is going to be a November game. It's going to be a night game. It is it is non-conference, but I think the stakes are going to be high, and it's always a good game when these two go against each other. So
it's going to be interesting for me because this could be one, like we're both high on Clemson. I think Clemson will be undefeated this game. You know, they play that game at Wake, but I think they handle Wake pretty well. Notre Dame has his home game. They could play spoiler to Clemson's season. Like, what a story. Like, even if Notre Dame's schedule is so tough this year where them losing 3 games is not a bad for them at all. But like, you could literally derail Clemson's season here. And let's say, I'm sorry, man, but let's say Notre Dame beats Ohio State. Then we could have 2 undefeated teams coming into this game.
Yeah, and for the future, is Clemson staying in the ACC? Are they going to the SEC?
Oh my God,
is Notre Dame going to the Big Ten and the ACC? I mean, who knows what this matchup is going to look like in the future? I'm just happy we have it now. All right, let's get into the top 3. I'll go ahead and start because that's where I have Oklahoma and Nebraska, and yeah, it's very high on my list. I'm just hyped for that game. I'm hyped. You know, I said this in our preseason top 25. I think everyone's forgetting about Brett Venables in Oklahoma, and I think they're writing them off so quickly. Don't forget about Oklahoma. I don't know what kind of season they're going to have this year, but they're still loaded with talent. I think Venables is a great coach. I'm very curious to see how they get back on track, but there's nothing better than Scott Frost, and it just a lot of expectations there. It is a noon kick. It's the 3rd weekend in September where there's not a lot of other great games that weekend. So I'm just really excited for that one. All right, what is your number 3?
This is where I have Alabama, 14.5-point favorite at Texas. It's probably number 3 for me instead of number 1 because it's a noon game. Listen, and also this game means more to me and to Texas fans than it does to the rest of the world. The rest of the world, Alabama 30-point victory. Steve Sarkisian is not ready. Texas is not ready. But for me, It's a good game to watch, see what Steve Sarkisian has up his sleeve, how he can handle the new program. There's just so many ex-Alabama players that are on Texas, and all the Alabama media has been talking about is this game and the players just jarring back and forth. It's going to be exciting to see. Like 14-point game. This is probably my most anticipated 14-point game outside of, obviously Georgia and Oregon. That's just because Georgia's defending champions. We want to see how they rebound.
Yeah, I'll go right into my number 2. That's where I've got Alabama and Texas. You can't deny the brand power in this one. Bama's going to win by 21, but as you said, it's probably going to be the most fun 21-point Alabama victory we've ever watched. I really hope Quinn Ewers wins the starting job for Texas because I just can't wait to watch that kid, especially in a game like this. And if he does win the starting job, this would be his second start. And, it's going to say, was he worth the hype? He's got to have a good game. You can't just go in and lay an egg. I don't care that it's against Alabama. You're at home.
Yeah.
We're talking about an 11 o'clock a.m. local time kickoff. I don't know who has the advantage there. It's Bama. Bama's got the advantage on every level. So just really, really excited for that one. All right, what is your number 2?
My number 2, this is where I have Georgia versus Oregon. Pretty much I said everything I wanted to say, but I'm so excited. I think part of the reason I have this, I think all 3 of my games, Marcus Freeman's an Ohio State guy, right? So all 3 of my games are former coaches, players, or whatever versus, their old programs. It's kind of exciting to see like how much this is in the forefront with these really big programs. I think it's going to be a bloodbath, and I think I'm going to turn it off by halftime, but I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I didn't have it higher on my list, because I think it possibly could just be an absolute blowout. Also, it's a neutral, site game. I think we, again, I think we need to stop these neutral site non-conference games. Just have them on campus. But still, a lot to look into on that one. All right, we have the same number 1, it seems. Yeah, and I'm excited about it. We got Notre Dame and Ohio State. Ohio State sitting at about a 14.5-point favorite. This is going to be a night game. Keep that in mind when you're looking to place your bets. Yes, last year Oregon got us. I was there, and I'm telling you right now, it was a noon game. It was hot as hell. There was no energy in the stadium. It was a perfect recipe for Oregon to come in and upset us. This is going to be a completely different story, folks. Ohio State is going to come in guns a-blazing in this game. This is also going to be a 21-point win for Ohio State. I have no doubt in my mind. But there's a lot of storylines there. Marcus Freeman, Ohio State alum, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I grew up watching him, and he's been talking a lot of trash about the way that Ohio State runs their program, just unnecessarily firing up these Ohio State players. Ryan Day will have no mercy in this one, and I think it is going to be a great way to open up the college football season. I think there is going to be a lot of energy in that stadium. There's a lot of expectations for Ohio State this year. There is every single year, but I'm telling you, folks, it's different. It feels different this year. For us, it truly does feel like national championship or bust this year. And it hasn't felt like that in a long time. Because you have to think about this from an Ohio State perspective. 2019, as good as that team was, it was Ryan Day's first year. Yeah. So it was not fair for us to put those expectations on him. It ended up being one of the greatest Ohio State teams we've ever seen on the field. And then 2020 was 2020. And 21, we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
We expect big things this year. Ohio State has got to win the Big Ten. They've got to start by winning this game big. They got to beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, get to the playoff. It's time.
I wrote on here, night game in the shoe. Next bullet point. Big bounce back from last year's non-conference loss. You better believe every single player at Ohio State is going to be up for this game. And now, instead of CJ Stroud, who is trying to make a name for himself, now he's the CJ Stroud who can fly, signing huge NIL deals, big man on campus, Heisman candidate, front runner, future first or second overall pick. This is a different Ohio State led team than it was last year, than it was in the past. And as much as hype as Notre Dame has every stinking year, I'm not buying it. Miles, I'm not buying it because Ohio State's that much better. And you guys are going to have a tougher, stronger defense than you did last year. You're not going to let some quarterback go and rip off 50 yards running unless he's running for his life.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that we learn here. We talked about Jim Knowles at Ohio State, and he's the most important man in college football going into this year. How improved is the defense after one off season? It's not too much of a test with the Notre Dame offense, but Notre Dame will have one of the best offensive lines in the country. So it'll give us an idea of what philosophy Ohio State is going to come in with this season, and the defense will tell us a lot. And then can Stroud and the passing game meet those expectations? This is a big one. It's gonna set the stage for a lot of storylines. If Ohio State somehow comes in and stumbles and loses its game, it changes the landscape of the entire season.
Totally agree. I'm 100% on board and in agreement. This was a great list. When I was building this list, I was struggling with like where I was ranking some of them, but to see that we have so many, we're like-minded positions, it makes me feel like we're going to have a lot of fun watching sports together this year.
Yeah, and I can't wait to cover these games in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir. Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening to What's the Spread podcast. Be sure to download Stitcher, iTunes, or however else you get your podcast. We're almost there, y'all. Take care.